What's going on YouTube? Brezzy43 here. I am back with our next video. Today we are going to be doing some more Series 10 action. I've been playing some online. I haven't been able to upload much recently again. Life has just been crazy busy. But I have been playing some, and I've of course been using Lunala. I think Lunala might be my favorite restricted, although I don't necessarily think it's the best. But it's just been a ton of fun to play. So today I wanted to show you some new teams that we're going to be featuring on the channel. But first I wanted to show you a super cool resource again. I have highlighted them before on my channel, but if you go to Google and you type in Liberty Note, and you go to, I think it's this first one, you'll see the website is in Japanese, so you can translate it. But how do I go back to the first page? Okay, so if we go to, I think if you scroll down just a little bit, you want to go to the Season 21 Final Ranking Top 30 Summary. Now, this is something that they do Liberty Note does this every month. They will showcase the top 30 teams that finished in the top 30 on the ladder, and you can scroll through. There's links to these players' Twitter accounts. So some of these players have their teams featured on their Twitter account. So if, let's just say, for example, we clicked on this. If we scroll down, we might see. Okay, so here's the team. We can kind of deduce what's going on here. Latias doesn't have a flying move. The Suicune does, so that tells me Tailwind's probably here. This is most likely Snarl. This could be Protect or Roar. Looks like this could also be Roar as well, but Fake Out for sure. Dark move, Fire move. Double Grass here on Rillaboom. Zacian's got the Fairy attack and the Fighting attack, so you can kind of do this, even though it is in Japanese. But they feature all these teams, and so you can kind of get an idea for what the top teams are or what people are finding success with, and kind of pick up trends from there. So I did some looking at this. A couple things I wanted to highlight really quick is that Latias is actually better than a lot of people give it credit for. Something that I was thinking about trying on that Zacian Mandibuzz team. This is very similar to what I was going to use, except I believe I had Landorus Therian here, and I think I had Waterfoo here, and then I had a Mandibuzz here, and then this was Volcarona. So it's very like similar style. It's just that these top three teams are actually the exact same team. It looks like maybe some different spreads, maybe some different items. This is actually the same player twice, so they might have an alternate account or something. Um, but one Tornogre team. This team is particularly interesting. This is something that I was thinking. I actually had a team similar to this jumbling around in my head. But Gyarados at the 5th and 7th place is really interesting to me. I think Gyarados is actually quite good. Um, this is we're in a double grass metagame, as well as like Gyarados matching up well into Zacian, matching up pretty well into Rillaboom, Incin, Water Shifu, and well, not really Regieleki, but both of these teams have a ground type that matches up well into Regieleki. So very interesting stuff happening here. So if you do want to get to that, just Google Liberty Note, and you can go to the page and you can kind of see what people are up to. Some pretty decent diversity. We got a couple of Eternatus teams, one Calyrex team here. Necrozma Duskmane is really cool. A couple more Eternatus. There's only one Xerneas in the top 30, if I remember correctly. So interesting stuff happening on the upper ladder for sure. So that's going to be my quick talk about Liberty Note. Great resource. You should definitely use it. But today we're going to be talking about some new teams that I'm going to be showcasing on the channel. I'm going to break them down real quick. I already have the teams up and built. We'll just talk through the spreads really quick. And then the general idea here is going to be to go from this video and describing the sets and describing the moves and why the Pokemon are on the team, and how I kind of came to the conclusion to use them, and then move into the next couple weeks doing videos with these teams. So first and foremost, this is the most recent Lunala team that I've been using. I don't plan on using this in the future just because I do think it has some problems. But Lunala has been very, very good. I've really been liking this interaction. This was something that I actually arrived at a little early. I think the best way to, early on in my team building that is, I think the best way to use Lunala is on Pseudo Trick Room. So you have this idea of Lunala being able to set Trick Room for something like Stakataka, and also because Lunala's in a nice speed tier for it as a restricted. But you also have this other mode with Tapu Lele that allows you to not set up Trick Room and turn on the offensive pressure. So I did keep a lot of this true to the other Lunala team that I will be showing in the future. This team is fine. This team does win. I've made it when the season dropped. I made it to top 100 with this team, and like in a 12-1 record or something. But then I started to lose a few. Um, People became like, you really have to play a little bit disciplined with this team. Lunala is something people are paying attention to now that they know that it has power herb and it's rising in popularity a bit. So they will often try to bait the power herb play, so they can switch their instant in later. But this team has Tapu Lele, which does good damage to Incineroar with Moonblasts, and then it also has Water Urshifu, which does pretty well into Incineroar as well. And then Trick Room Stakataka can also hit it really hard with either Body Press or Stone Edge. Amoonguss for redirection instead of Indeedee. I've been really liking Lele. I think Lele is really good, especially Scarf Lele with Shadow Ball gives you another play into Calyrex, as well as being like decent against some of the Xerneas teams, right? Because like Fairy Aura boosted Moonblasts coming from a 130 base special attack is pretty good. Unfortunately, you do have to go Timid even though you have the Scarf because you can't outspeed um, Calyrex without being Timid. And additionally, actually, I think it's close. Let's see. Tapu Lele. So if you switch to Modest here, you actually speed Tization, max speed Zation, and you just barely underspeed Calyrex. So if you go Timid, I took a couple of points out here. I'm like this, I believe, and then I took this out to 237. Gives you enough to outspeed Calyrex still. You also outspeed Choice Scarf Kyogre, which is really cool. You also outspeed most of the Water Urshifu that are Choice Scarf because they often aren't Jolly. They often are Adamant. So I do believe Timid is fine. You don't miss out on that many knockouts by being Timid over Modest. Pretty standard Stakataka. Safety Goggles is really important to beat Amoonguss, but also I've been still really liking Stone Edge. Stone Edge gives you a chance to just delete Incineroar if you get a lucky crit, which, it has a higher critical hit ratio, but it also hits things like Ho-Oh and Volcarona a lot harder than Rock Slide does. This is the Pokemon that I ended up not liking the most. It was actually these two. Amoonguss was fantastic. Amoonguss was actually next in my searching. Amoonguss was really, really nice for redirection as well as another thing to do in Trick Room. Amoonguss Stakataka is a really good lead against a lot of the Xerneas teams. And then you have like Lunala, Tapu Lele to bring in the back or whatever you decide to do. But Amoonguss is really, really good against both Kyogre and Xerneas, which is the reason why we have Cobra Berry here. No Protect is something that I'm trying for a little while. I want to explore both of these moves. Grass Knot's really, really good against Kyogre and things like Groudon and Stakataka if you are forced to bring Amoonguss against Groudon. But Pollen Puff is just so good on this team to heal back up your Stakataka to potentially, rebuy your Shadow Shield. Excuse me. So that's why I'm trying both. But if I was in an open team sheet tournament, I would definitely be running Protect because you lose a lot of value if your opponent knows you don't have Protect. They can just double it and knock it out right away. So having Protect in that situation is really important. We actually only have one Protect on this entire team, so that's something that you have to kind of keep in mind. I've been really liking Expanding Force, which is the whole reason why you run a Psychic Terrain user, in my opinion. If you weren't running Psychic Terrain, you could just run like Psyshock or something, but I really like this team has challenged me a lot in positioning, so I've really liked this, and like being forced to kind of play differently and think ahead. Protect is good to kind of reposition, and you will find yourself out of position a lot of times, but sometimes your opponent plays around to Protect that's just not there, right? Incin, the only unique thing about this EV spread is that 236 HP, 164 Impish takes both close combat from Mienshao as well as surging strikes from Water Urshifu. Not the Mystic Water set, only the Focus Sash set or the Choice Scarf set. So that's the idea here. The speed is to have the fastest fake outs when you're leading it next to Lunala or Sakataka for fake out, but also to have the slowest U-turns inside of Trick Room. And it does that pretty well. And then Water or Shifu. So the whole idea is like Lunala, Lele, or Shifu, and then either Incineroar or Amoonguss give you a really nice non-Trick Room mode. Lunala, Incin, Stakataka, Amoonguss give you a really nice Trick Room mode. In any particular order, not necessarily in that order, but you can also bring Lele in the back in some matchups to clean up. You can lead Urshifu, like Urshifu Lunala lead is pretty good in a lot of situations. Lele's Urshifu's a pretty good lead in a lot of situations. So the only thing that I will say that is two things that are challenging about this team is that when you run Lele, Incineroar can kind of be a trap sometimes if you're not careful with your positioning because you can't fake out in psychic terrain. And additionally, there's no ground resist on this team. This team does do a little bit of switching, and you have a ground weak and you have no ground resist. So that's something that I had to revisit when I was team building. So if you want to try this version of the team, it will win you games. Scarf Lele Amoonguss is a really good lead against Kyogre. You can lead Lele Incin against Calyrex or Lele Lunala against Calyrex. This set does not survive Life Orb Astro Barrage, but it does survive Life Orb Shadow Ball and any non-Life Orb item Astro Barrage. So if they're like Choice Scarf, for example, it survives it. And then the 116 defense. I've just preferred to have a physically bulky Lunala rather than especially bulky, but if you did switch these, you would take the Astro Barrage, but you're going to be a lot weaker physically with this EV spread. So yeah, that's the logic there. But now let's get on to some of the other teams that I've built. I've got 4 of them here to showcase. The first one is my hybrid of the combination of this team with the Zacian team that I was using before. So if you remember correctly, the team was Rillaboom, Volcarona, Zacian, Mandibuzz, Water Urshifu, and I believe Landorus Therian. Yes. So this team is slightly different. Volcarona is still the same Volcarona I was using before. This HP stat optimizes for both grassy terrain recovery and citrus berry recovery. Modest hits the jump. 252 speed is all that you need for in order to outspeed things after a Quiver Dance. And then Fiery Dance and Giga Drain, I believe, are the best attacks. You could run Flamethrower or something else here just for the extra damage. Fiery Dance giving you a 50% chance to increase your special attack is huge, though, in some matchups. Assault Vest Rillaboom with Drum Beating. This is a really interesting move that I've been seeing rising in popularity, and I think that this is really good. It's a better Rillaboom for Kyogre, right? Because they often have Serena. And so you can lead this Rillaboom into Serena and not get trapped with only Grassy Glide. We have other tools for Calyrex, so you don't need to necessarily have Knockoff. Knockoff wins more against non-Kyogre teams, but Drum Beating just kind of demolishes Kyogre teams. So that's the thought process here. This is super bulky Zacian with Play Rough. This is something that I'm going to be experimenting with. I actually don't know if you need Sacred Sword. I think I might put in Swords Dance or Substitute here. This is a new Zacian set that's been running around. A lot of people are using it. There's not a lot that you're missing out in the speed tier between 200 and 220, which is what Zacian hits with this with the Jolly speed. You're missing like Dragapult, and you're missing maybe a couple of other things that might fall into the speed stat between 130 is 200. So you're going to be speed tying Koko, Mewtwo, Spectrier, Crobat, Jolteon. But otherwise, between Zacian and Tapu Koko, you're only missing out on Dragapult. And you're going to be underspeeding opposing Zacian, which is something you have to keep in mind. Usually underspeeding them. But this extra bulk is huge. This extra bulk allows you to take Kyogre Water Spouts. So normally you wouldn't be able to take it, but if you instead did this, you will almost always take the Water Spout. You might actually take it if you, let's see, does that take it? It gets a better roll, so maybe that's what we want to do. Maybe that will be a small optimization. But the other thing that you survive is Calyrex, Helping Hand, Astro Barrage. You survive that, which is really, really big. So that's basically like the logic behind this. Adamant with only 4 EVs is actually quite, it's actually more than enough damage. With Jolly Max, you actually only hit 221, so you're not actually missing out on that much damage. Um, Only like 11 stat points, which you've got Swords Dance for. The only reason why you really run Sacred Sword is to beat Incineroar, which we do have other tools for Incineroar, and Incineroar will still take really good damage from Play Rough. So that's the logic here. Um, and maybe Sacred Sword's still better on this team, but I think I want to try Play Rough for a little while. I think Play Rough is actually like there's some dragon types that are rising up that Play Rough hits really, really hard, right? Gyarados. This EV spread is not mine. This EV spread is a really bulky spread that I've been seeing people run on a lot of these teams. Gyarados is a phenomenal Intimidate switch in to Zacian because you cover both of Zacian's weaknesses, right? You've got Fire and Ground are the only 2 weaknesses Zacian has. Gyarados is immune to one and resists the other. Um, you don't actually need the extra moves on this set specifically because, like I said, we have other tools for Kyogre and Gyarados. So Power Whip doesn't make a lot of sense unless you're trying to hit opposing water types, which you have double grass move for. You've got Giga Drain and Rillaboom. Um, and then Thunder Wave is really, really good at just like spreading status, and Taunt is good at shutting down things like Amoonguss and Trick Room and things like that. So I really like this set. I'm going to try this out for a little bit. I don't know what it's EV'd for. The Gyarados that I was using originally, um, when I was looking at Gyarados, was a very simple EV spread. It was something like that. I was running very little. I think I was Assault Vest though, and then I was running like a lot of defense, and then a little bit of like I might have been like this. This doesn't EV for anything in particular, but this is a good Assault Vest number and stuff like that. So this EV spread I really like, and I think it's really good against opposing Zacian teams. It's really good against the physical attackers in the metagame. This Pokemon's pretty good against Landorus as well, right? Because it's immune to the ground. So I'm definitely going to give this a try. And the last 2 Pokemon are really kind of sleeper picks in my opinion. I think Mamoswine's actually quite good. The only Pokemon you kind of have to worry about is like the Rillaboom with Grassy Glide. You have other good tools for Rillaboom here. So I like you could potentially you might have to play around a little bit, but I think Mamoswine is a good switch in for Gyarados because it's a really good electric immunity. It closes out the game so well in a lot of these matchups. If you take a look at the top metagame, Incineroar can't intimidate you and you hit it really hard with high horsepower. And it might be actually correct to go Adamant. I think I was Jolly originally, but I think Adamant's better. The only thing you don't outspeed is that Mystic Water or Shifu set. But you do add some extra calcs in there. Like I think you actually kill Incin. So obviously Incineroar can't intimidate you. Yeah, so you have a roll to KO Incineroar. So if you've chipped it at all, it will die. Rillaboom and things like that are not gonna appreciate the Icicle Crashes or Ice Shards. You are faster than Rillaboom as well with this EV spread, even at Adamant. So your Ice Shard will go before Grassy Glide. It only gets complicated if the double grass is like Rillaboom and Serena, in which case you kind of have to rely on other tools on your team. But Zacian's really good against those 2 anyway. But I think Mamoswine's really good against, even continuing on, Regieleki very good against Urshifu. Not amazing, but like you have other tools for Urshifu, right? You've got Zacian, you've got Rillaboom, you've got Gyarados. Like you've got other tools for it. You could paralyze it with Thunder Wave or something. Amoonguss you're good against. Zacian you're pretty good against if you can speed control it with Thunder Wave, or you can or it's just you versus Zacian at the end because high horsepower will knock it out. Stack Attack are quite good against until they get Trick Room up. Ice Shard just knocks out Landorus, especially Adamant. Entei takes a ton of damage from this. Serena takes a ton of damage from this. Volcarona takes a ton of damage from high horsepower. So I really like Mamoswine right now in this metagame, and I actually think it's quite good. So that's the logic behind Mamoswine. And then last is Choice Scarf Hydreigon. This is something that I was trying to think about other dark types. I was really interested in dragon types with flying or levitate, which is why I was so interested in Latias. And then I saw this team with Hydreigon, and I was like, that's the Pokemon, right? Like Dragon Dark is a really good typing right now. Levitate makes you immune to a lot. Like this picks up a ton of weaknesses or a ton of resistances, except for like close combat from Urshifu, right? But you have Choice Scarf with Timid. I do unfortunately think you need to have Timid, even though Modest does pick up a lot of your outspeeds. But I imagine that this team is going to be leading like Hydreigonization or Hydreigon Rillaboom into Kyogre teams. And you really want to be outspeeding Choice Scarf Kyogre as well, as, which you don't do at Modest. Now, could this be more optimized? Maybe, but it also this outspeeds the Scarf Lele I just showed you before if you have to bring it against Lele, and it also outspeeds like Choice Scarf or Shifu and things like that. So I do think that Timid is actually better. Um, but Dark Pulse and Snarl is just so good against Calyrex. If they don't have Indeedee on the field, you can Dark Pulse them. If they do have Indeedee, let's see how much they take. So Snarl still almost KOs them from Hydreigon. So you do a ton of damage to them. They're probably in range of the Grassy Glide anyway, or whatever other you probably lead Zacian Hydreigon against them or Rillaboom Hydreigon. But yeah, Dark Pulse and Snarl are great. Draco Meteor for a ton of offensive pressure, and then Flamethrower is the coverage move I wanted, just because I figured there was some matchups like Calyrex that I may be bringing Hydreigon and not Volcarona, and so having that extra fire coverage for Rillaboom's potentially like the grass types as well, Serena, Amoonguss, things like that, over Earth Power, which is better for Incin because we have like Play Rough for Incin. We also have High Horsepower for Incin. So yeah, that's this team. I'm going to be showcasing this team in the next couple of weeks. Moving on, this is the new Lunala team that I'm going to be using. So we maintained the same 4 Pokemon as the one above with the exact same EV spreads. Actually, this might be a different Amoonguss. I don't know for sure what my EV spread was before. This Amoonguss is like, I think it's EV to survive two water spouts from Kyogre, but I don't know for sure. Um, but I'm gonna run Araquanid, so I have a ground resist mostly, but also like Araquanid's really good against Zacian teams, which I was a little bit weak to, because Lele doesn't really want to take, it doesn't really want to do anything against Zacian, and Araquanid's also another tool for Kyogre, which is really nice. And then I switched the Incin to Entei. This is a really bulky Assault Vest Entei that's adamant. I don't know what this speed stat's for, to be honest with you. I copied this one off of something else, but adamant 116 hits the jump in attack. 36 is a good assault vest number to bring us to 100. 212 HP was kind of what I had remaining over, but 140 speed kind of brings us into that mid-range, like outspeeding Adamant Mamoswine, outspeeding the Choice Scarf or Shifu that isn't, or not the Choice Scarf, excuse me, the Mystic Water or Shifu, um, as well as like actually being decent inside Trick Room. I thought about just going Jolly Max Speed, but I was thinking that I wanted to be. This is my first version of the Pokemon. I think that I want to be able to function inside of Trick Room a bit, and I don't exactly know what Jolly gets you. Um, this 140 speed outspeeds Rillaboom, outspeeds Serena, outspeeds Incineroar, outspeeds um, most, or at least those Mystic Water or Shifus. It's got a lot of like merit right now, and so I think it's better than Incineroar because it doesn't have the dark typing, which makes it weak to things like Mienshao and Sacred Sword from Zacian. It's a harder counter to Zacian, and it gets Crunch for the Calyrex matchup. So I can still lead Tapu Lele Entei against Calyrex, and then bring Lunala +1 in the back for the late game. Um, but Entei, I think, is an incredible Pokemon right now. And it's something that a lot of people are doing Choice Scarf stuff, so I'm hoping that I think Pikalytics said only 25% of teams were using Assault Vest. So um, I think Assault Vest is actually quite good. So this will be the new Lunala team that I'll be using. Next, we have a Necrozma Dawnwings team, and now this team is almost is very similar to the team that Aaron Zhang featured on Road to Ranked. The team originated in my head as Lilligant, Torkoal. Here, let's just make a new team really quick so I don't delete anything. The original team that I was working on with a buddy, I really wanted to use Lilligant Torkoal. People stopped using Torkoal because I don't know why, but it's a phenomenal answer to Zacian, or a phenomenal check to Zacian rather, because it's got such high defense stat and it gets really good fire attacks. And I was originally using Mimikyu as because I liked the idea of a really reliable Trick Room setter, and then I was using Calyrex Ice, because you have two different modes for Calyrex that way, where you can go for After You plus Glacial Lance, or you can go for After You Eruption, or you can just set Trick Room. Um, but the team never came to fruition. I struggled with my matchups a lot and I couldn't quite figure it out. So after removing Calyrex, I thought about maybe trying Necrozma, Duskmane. I just couldn't get anything to work. And then Aaron released his team, or released the video showcasing the other team, and I was like, huh, I think this is I think this is the team that I was looking for. I think this is the idea that I had. Um, So the idea here is that Lilligant Torkoal is really good against a lot of teams that don't have double fake out, or even if they do, you can often like they're forced to lead it and they're forced to position around after you eruption. It does so much damage that um, it can catch some teams off guard. And when I was playtesting with this team, there was so many teams that would just get demolished by the combination of these two Pokemon. Um, so yeah, the idea is like you have this as an option, but Torkoal is also very, very good inside Trick Room. Mienshao is a phenomenal answer uh, to Incineroar. I think Choice Specs is probably the best item on Torkoal when you're pairing it with Lilligant specifically. If you're not pairing it with Lilligant, you could run Charcoal, you could run Iron Ball. I've seen Iron Ball a couple times, and that's actually a really cool item because it allows you to underspeed Stack Attack and Trick Room and get off an Earth Power and KO opposing stacks, right? Um, But I'm running Leaf Storm over Grass Knot because it one shots Groudon, most Groudon spreads, and it does a ton of damage to Kyogre. It actually has a chance to KO Kyogre, whereas Grass Knot does not. But the only downside of Leaf Storm is that you're just kind of one and done, right? So that's the idea behind those two. Mienshao, the Eject Pack would be a Focus Sash if the item was available still. But Eject Pack is really interesting. I saw it come up in Aaron's game a couple times where if you lead Necrozma Mienshao, you can go for close combat into the Incineroar, knock it out, and then immediately switch out because of the eject pack and set Trick Room, and then you get a free switch into Torkoal or Stack Attacka. So that's the logic behind the Mienshao item. Feint could be knockoff if I wanted it, but I think for now I'm going to be testing Feint. Wide Guard's just very, very good, and then Fake Out gives me the chance to Fake Out plus um, Trick Room if I want to. Necrozma's Power Herb, 228 special attack KOs the really popular Necrozma Dawn Wings. Whoops, am I modest? No, I'm quiet. Okay. This KOs the really common Incineroar spread 100% of the time. This really popular it has a guaranteed one shot to the 236 HP, 236 special defense Incineroar. So that's why you run 228. The 28 defense, I don't really know what the popular set's calcing for. If they have it like this and then they have this, I don't really know what that does. So I figured the same logic behind Lunala was just to go as bulky as I could and shore up that one weakness. But 77 speed actually makes it so you do want to run 0 speed. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that Lunala doesn't want to run 0 speed because it still doesn't get to underspeed Incineroar inside of Trick Room, and Lunala is pretty tough to kind of position in some matchups when you're trying to dance around when to set Trick Room, when not to. So um, that's the logic behind 0 speed. Indeedee female is 0 speed. The one change I did make was I added Shadow Ball over Helping Hand. I just was never clicking it. I never saw Aaron clicking in his video, and I think Shadow Ball gives you more of an out to Calyrex. Um, and then Psyshock just to hit on the opposite side of the spectrum of defenses than your Necrozma. Um, but you could run Psychic here. You could run Helping Hand if you want. Heal Pulse. I didn't even know that Indeedee got Heal Pulse, if I'm being honest. So Heal Pulse is pretty sweet. Safety Goggles allows you to redirect spores and ignore Amoonguss entirely. Heal Pulse through Rage Powder, etc. And then this is just a pretty standard EV spread. There's nothing really specific here that this does. The last one, I did keep the Psychic Seed Stakataka from Aaron's video. I do think that it gives you a really good answer to Calyrex. So if we look at Stakataka and we look at Calyrex, Helping Hand boosted Calyrex does KO Stakataka, but not through the Psychic Seed. Psychic Seed gives you a guaranteed survival to Helping Hand and allows you to go for Trick Room, and then the subsequent turn you can go for Gyro Ball plus Heal Pulse or whatever. So that's the logic there. I still like Stone Edge a lot. I'm still a big believer in Stone Edge, but you're allowed to do to use whatever rock move you want in that position. And I have 4 IVs here just because that's what my Stakataka is. I did not get a 0 speed. I got a 4 IV. So the only other iteration I could see of this team that potentially would be interesting is to change the Lilligant to Venusaur and then run Torkoal with Iron Ball, because then you still get the really powerful Torkoal stuff, but Lilligant, you could still run Sleep Powder if you want to. You could also run Earth Power and get ground coverage on another Pokemon on this team, and you could have another, like a poison type to hit things like Rillaboom even harder, as well as things like Xerneas too. So, because then Xerneas, you could just lead Venusaur Stakataka into Xerneas, and then that would be really, really strong in my opinion. And you could bring Torkoal and Necrozma in the back. So, yeah. And then the last team is this Palkia team. This team was something that I took inspiration from if we go to Victory Road, I took some inspiration from this team. Where this team was using Palkia, Amoonguss, Incin, and Stakataka. But I swapped the Stakataka to Bronzong. I swapped these. I added Rillaboom over the Zapdos, and I converted the Landorus to a bit. Actually, this might be the same Landorus spread, but I could see Rocky Helmet Landorus being good here. In fact, I might switch that to Rocky Helmet as well. But I like the idea of Telepathy Palkia with Choice Scarf Bulldoze. That gives you a non-Trick Room mode to the team, if you will. This EV spread, I believe it survives. It's very similar to this one. It always lives Modest Tornadus Hurricane and Modest Kyogre Ice Beam. So that's the logic behind this. I did tweak it a little bit from the EV spread because I wanted more HP, and the physical defense doesn't really matter that much when you have double Intimidate on your team. So that's the logic behind this. Rillaboom's Assault Vest. This one does have knockoff instead of Drum Beating or another grass attack, because it is important to bring this against Calyrex. You need to be able to have another answer to Calyrex, and this team has a good Kyogre matchup already just by nature of having a Palkia and double grass. So I like the knockoff here. This is just a bulky set, 100 speed, 76 special defense. I think this is pretty similar to the other one that I showed you before. Nothing really too special about it. But we are Citrus Berry Incin over something like Safety Goggles, because the Safety Goggles is on the Bronzong. I'm running Parting Shot instead of U-Turn on this one, and Throat Chop instead of something like Lash Out or something like that, because Throat Chop shuts off opposing Parting Shots, shuts off Snarl, things like that. So if you can catch their Incineroar on the switch in, you can shut down those moves, which is really cool. Bronzong. This Pokemon has been very interesting to me since basically the entirety of Sword and Shield. People have I was using this in Series 7 with a Moltres team, a Galarian Moltres team, and it was really, really good. Levitate's phenomenal. It basically, like, in some instances, it's better Stakataka, because it still has Gyro Ball to pressure Xerneas. It gets Trick Room, same as Stakataka, but it has Levitate and Iron Defense Body Press. So you have more weaknesses than Stakataka. Well, you have Fire, Dark, and Ghost, where Stakataka has Water, Fighting, and Ground, but 2 of those are 4 times weaknesses, right? and you still maintain a ton of resistances with Bronzong. Um, and safety goggles is just a really, really good item. You can lead a Moongus Bronzong into these teams, and you could go for Trick Room and Spore, and then you can just heal up with Pollen Puff and just start Iron Defensing. And some teams just aren't going to be able to beat that. Sacred Sword Zacian is a bit annoying, but you've got double Intimidate for that, right? Amoonguss with Akaberry to better protect the Bronzong, um, as well as just being like pretty specially bulky, but mostly like even bulk across the board. And then this 219 Amoonguss is something that I've been doing a lot lately. It's just optimized for regenerator recovery. And then Landorus with Choice Scarf and a naive nature. Um, you want to be physically bulky for the Zacian teams. You don't typically run into any issues with taking special attacks against a lot of the teams that you want it for. And then Choice Scarf 212 outspeeds what you need it to outspeed and gets the Bulldoze off next to Palkia or Bronzong to drop some speed. And then you've got Earth Power, U-Turn, and Rock Slide for strong offensive stats. So yeah, that's going to be this team here, or these few teams. I'm excited to use them. They are really fun. I've been doing a lot of videos with Lunala, and Lunala, I think, like I said, is probably my favorite restricted. Um, but I'm also very excited to use this team, and I do like Trick Room a lot, as you all probably know. So having like multiple teams with Trick Room options and even one really hard Trick Room team is really interesting to me, and something I'm excited to use. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below which team you'd like me to start with. I'm happy to start with basically anywhere, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next videos.